party time or what?
Ready? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Barbell Shrugged is brought to you by you. To learn more about how you can support the show, go to barbellshrugged.com and sign up for the newsletter.
We all recognize the folly.
Are we on the same page, Michael?
Probably not.
Very rarely, huh?
Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Mike Bletzer here with Doug Larson, Chris Moore,
hey,
CTP behind the camera. We have traveled to Phoenix, Arizona to hang out with the guys at Rush Club. If you want to check that out, rushclubnation.com. It's a new style of functional fitness.
They fight, though.
Heads up competition. That's as far as we'll go into that because it's really confusing.
Check it out.
Describe functional fitness competitions, right? Yeah, so we're talking about, we're going to do a show, just the three of us talking. CTP might jump in about Diane Fu's article that she wrote for The Daily, which The Daily is something that we just started doing a few weeks ago. Chris, actually tell everyone about The Daily first.
I was trying to think of what else we could do, like to give people more of what we already do, because like we do the show once a week every week, which is cool enough, but people want more. So I was trying to think of what the highest value thing we could do is, and a blog is always like a really good idea. But I didn't want to do just a blog. I want to think, well, how could I really make it the same kind of feeling as a show? I wanted people to like read it and go, feels like Barbell Shrugged. So I knew it was kind of a challenge. Like, how do you do that? So I said, well, the most of the content, I think I'll just build it around what we do the show. Like the best moments are when you phrase a question that comes out of your experience and the idea you have, and you get a great response from the person you asked the question to, and it kicks off some chain of like unknown, like neither one of you thought you'd be talking about what you talk about. So it kind of kicks off new ideas. That's sort of the mission statement of The Daily, is to mix ideas and see what happens. So I pitched Diane a question. Okay, from my perspective, and I thought maybe she was, from her perspective, she wasn't thinking this what she looked like. But I said, well, to me, it looks like you are somebody who really, really values as a coach, like doing a better and more beautiful snatch or squat over just doing a heavier one. Like load doesn't seem to be the sole marker of progress for you. It's not the only thing that's important to you.
Yeah.
So Diane, what is? Like, how do you define progress? And I was like, and of course, whenever you do something like this, you go, is that question dumb? Like, you don't have to answer if it's stupid or I'm sorry. But she actually came back and was like, wow, like, I guess I've never thought of it that way. So again, the process of asking questions is really awesome.
I do like that style. Yeah. When like people email me like, hey, do you mind like contributing an article or something? And they're like, an article? I'm like, well, if you have something very, very specific you need answered, much more likely to write that.
Yeah, so it's like a Socratic process. Maybe I try to draw out what neither one of us thought was there. So that's what we did with that. That's what we try to do with every post. And I think you can kind of feel the honesty. But she laid out, well, I guess I kind of knew was there, but it turned out to be just really, really awesome. So awesome in the fact that she told me she was going to use that as like her official like declaration. Like, this is what's important to me. She broke it down like the physical, mental, and emotional ways she assesses how an athlete matures. From basically what she used the metaphor a couple times, like a baby, which I think works. People get like when you're a picture of a newborn calf getting up trembling and like everything is edgy and jittery and not very refined, not very beautiful. And then as soon as that calf can get up to full speed and run off and live as a fully functional animal who doesn't need instruction, that's what she wanted to achieve with her athletes. Was that for her, it wasn't like just about mindlessly putting weight on the bar. It was about having them mature at all these dimensions to the point where they could then go off and coach people. Like they didn't need her anymore.
That was the best part of the whole article, was the fact that she was trying to get her athletes to the point where they don't need her anymore. They've surpassed her in some way, and they can even come back and coach her if she's really done her job. And that was actually when I was growing up. When I was growing up in Washington with my coach Mark, that was what he always told me. He was like, I'm trying to get you to where you don't need me anymore. And that is exactly what happened. Like, now Mark calls me for training advice. There's certainly a million things he still does better than me with respect to coaching, but that happened where I was able to kind of get away from the homestead and go out on my own into the real world and be just fine on my own without needing him anymore.
Yeah, you became real peers. Like, that's what's really awesome.
Right.
Is like him lifting you up to his level was his greatest gift he could give you.
Right. What was the quote she had at the very end? Like, it kind of summarized the whole thing. It was like, first you're standing behind me, and then you're standing next to me, and then eventually you're standing in front of me, or something like that. Yeah,
she was very careful. Diane, I love you. She was like, I really love that last sentence. Like, I read between the lines, like, okay, I won't edit the last sentence. But she was like, to quote Diane Fu, which is Diane, it's lovely. Progress to me is an athlete that moves from following behind me to standing next to me to eventually surpassing me as their coach.
Yeah,
that's perfect.
Beautiful. I mean, that's really like the best declaration of what a coach is. I can possibly imagine. Like, we can name examples. One of them we just heard in a very crazy way. Coaches who I don't think live that kind of life. Like, very boisterous, very very self-focused. Like that guy who called us all out from Jacksonville. We won't get into that. We can go John North's podcast for that. There's certain coaching behaviors that aren't so open-minded. And for Diane to say what's most important to me is for athletes to surpass me and leave me behind, that's a brave thing. It's a brave stance to take if you're a coach, to say what I want to do is get rid of my clients. That's how I'm successful as a coach, is get everybody out of here. But then also to be so good at that, if you trust that, then people see that, and you're always going to have new talent who wants to constantly come to you because you're doing such a good job prepping people.
If you coach anyone for any appreciable amount of time, you'll realize that eventually it's not just about teaching them movement. You're really turning into kind of a life mentor in a way. So I really appreciate the fact that she was looking at it from 3 different angles, where she was looking at their mental, their emotional, and their physical worlds, and she's trying to develop them in all 3 capacities.
Yeah, people really latch on to the numbers, and the numbers are just like one little part of the pie.
Well, it kind of goes into like kind of talking about the mental side of things too. Is I talk to athletes who they're like, when will I be ready to compete? And I'm like, just compete now. Like, start competing now. Because that's so much of – people put so much emphasis on the lifts, how strong, how big their squat is, how much their snatch gets up to. But how they're going to perform in the gym training compared to how they're going to perform on the platform, that's a whole other mental aspect that needs to be trained.
Sure.
So you got to practice to compete and stuff like that. She didn't get into specifically that, but as you're thinking about mental, emotional, physical – people put so much focus on the physical and on movement and getting like physically stronger that like the mentally strong and the practice of being in the spotlight and stuff like that is something that's neglected way too much.
So I was curious to see everybody really focuses hard, obviously, on like programming and diet. Then like the things that are so important, sleep and the basic fundamentals, are routinely skipped over.
Well, the idea of coaching, I think, seeing kind of like a big shift towards where people think that coaching is programming, and that is a factor in coaching. Yeah. But like, so many people are like, I get a program from my coach, and then I don't have really any conversations about it at all. I just do it, send them videos. Yeah. Maybe they watch it, maybe they don't. I'm like, I was like, okay, you have a program designer. Let's not call that person a coach. Like, your coach is somebody who you're communicating with, you're getting feedback from, and they're helping build you up. And so that's one of the things that like stand out to me a lot of times. People go, they call this person their coach that gives them like a third of the pie. It's like, well, there's probably some other things that you get a lot more. Even if you get someone who's not doing the best program design in the world, the fact that you have a coach on site helping you out or you're interacting with is going to take you to the next level. Yeah,
you wouldn't call someone your teacher just because they wrote you a blog post every day.
Right.
I mean, they're an author in some way. You're learning from them, but they're not necessarily your teacher. Like your school teacher would be your teacher, where they're there every day interacting with you, giving you information. The student repeating back what they heard and their interpretation of it, and then the teacher correcting. There's some interaction there. That's what coaching and teaching is. Yeah. So you can't just get the written workouts. Yeah. It's a piece of it, to be sure, and it's really important.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to it than that.
He's doing a good job of this now. Is I think the Muscle Driver crew. That's pretty much one of our best camps. But now you have Glenn and Don and Travis does some coaching. But what are they doing? Like, if you really look what the job of a coach is, they're kind of mimicking, I guess, what like a European coach will do. You see those guys kind of just walking around. Like, if you watch Kokov's little videos,
they're not out there
all the Russian
you
videos.
To do this training program or that.
You have these guys kind of living amongst the lifters and observing carefully, and just getting a sense of what's going on and watching their reactions. Not always just jumping in and saying, "All right, add this weight." They're not like doing that. They're kind of seeing how they are living, like kind of monitoring the conditions. And then they know, like you said, they know about like, well, maybe the loading is a little high or this, that, and the other. They also know Oh, I had breakfast with him, so I know that his girlfriend broke up a little bit or something. And like they know all, they're tied into all these emotions that are also equally as important to be able to regulate.
They have too is the community.
Yeah.
People living in the same vicinity of each other.
One of the most genius
training
things
together every day, things like that. Athletes are pushing each other. I don't imagine. I mean, some of the best places I've seen where the best athletes coming out, the coach isn't like cracking the whip, so the athletes are pushing each other.
There's a genius post one time from Glenn Pendley, who was talking about how his observations from going to like Pan Ams and all these meets where big time coaches and athletes were coming, like the biggest names, the biggest camps were coming, like the South American lifters and Russians and everybody. And he goes, it's interesting to see what they talk about, what they don't. Like, and to see what they do and see what they don't do. Like, they're all doing a little different things. Some might do more RDLs than the other, and some will squat a little heavier, closer to competition than the others, or whatever. But he goes, no one's going, that guy's doing a little bit heavier squat. Man, we should. There's none of this like, what is the secret they're doing? They all understand that's one thing, but all the other factors are so heavily more important. Like all the other lifestyle factors that are also involved, because they all do similar things. I mean, you can get strong with a lot of basic tools and different combinations. People get really lost on only focusing on looking for secrets and numbers, and you're really missing out on all the other ways.
Yeah, I really appreciated when we were recording World Class Weightlifting with Justin Thacker. He broke down all the things that all the different countries do, like say China, United States, Russia, Ukraine, Bulgaria, wherever. He broke down all the things that all these countries do that are like the exact same. Everyone does these things. And then he broke another category down where he's saying they, for the most part, kind of do these things similarly. And then there's this little category at the bottom where he said that each country does these things drastically differently. And everyone seems to focus on those things that are drastically differently, forgetting that like 80% of it really is the same. Yeah. And they're focusing on those little details. And then when you're trying to start a program and you're brand spanking new, you should focus on those little details. Like, should I do what the Russians are doing? Should I do what the Chinese are doing? Like, just focus on the big picture and what everyone is doing that is the same. And if you do that stuff, you'll get pretty good.
Yeah, amazingly good. It's amazing with just repetition and fundamentals. Like, I don't know how can we make it sexier to get around the repetition and fundamentals. Like, everybody knows that consistency is like the biggest thing that's going to matter most in strength training. Yeah, and it's doing what you know you should be doing more frequently.
Well, I get the question, from people like, which BCAA supplement should I take? And my response is usually like, well, how much sleep do you get? And they'll go, probably like 5 to 6 hours a night. I'm like, BCAAs aren't going to help you. Or if you could take the same energy you're putting in what you want to take for supplements, and you put that into just getting 8 hours of sleep a night, the benefit there is going to outweigh any supplement you could take.
The same thing goes with like a guy might be really focused on like, okay, I need to get stronger. So there's options I know of. This program versus this one. Try one, wasn't it. Go for this one, wasn't it. That process, oh fuck, I forgot what I was going to say. What was
I have no idea what you were going to say, actually.
No,
that's why I was letting you say it.
Oh, God. Well, every once in a while, the thought just completely vaporizes out of your mind. Has there ever been a part in the show where I derailed myself?
It's just now happening.
Oh. Oh, no. Okay. No, okay. I got it.
See, I have to get back on track by trying to say something myself, and then he'll butt right in.
See?
If we let him just sit there and think on his own, there's no chance.
It was about Diane's focus, the mental point, about how an athlete will look all around for the program solution, but they'll forget that, like, when they go for a heavy lift, they're emotionally unstable about it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they act immature about it. And they miss it when all they need to do is, like, say, what went wrong? Okay, I need to work on that. They go, I missed it. Why am I not good enough to make the weight?
She talked about like
a very different version.
Fidgeting and
the new lifters being very fidgety and not being self-aware, being full of self-doubt, and how as you see that go away, and you see them emerge as somebody who can go off and basically run on their own. So that's how you know you're doing your job better.
You feel like that's what you were doing like back in powerlifting when you like slam your head against the barbell and like try to get like really fucking psyched up for a lift? Or was that a lack of confidence, or that was just like you trying to get motivated for the lift?
Well, one, it's the reason why now sometimes I forget things. No, the point you were making was for competition, one of the things I did in front of cameras and stuff, because I thought it was necessary. Like, I thought the more intense you could get, the more it would just like correlate with more load on the bar.
That's part of the powerlifting culture too, though.
It is. And it's what I got burned out with in time. Like, I love it. Like, I respect people who still get fired up about it, but I feel like you can't do that for long. Like, it's very intense, and if you're gonna do it, go for it with everything you got. But it's so redlined all the time, that sport. And everything is pushed to so extreme, like where everything can even push yourself beyond what you can even do. Like everything is extreme. That I felt like after a while, I was like, I just couldn't get the same amount of enjoyment out of it. So like I look back and go, yeah, I didn't need to slam my head in the bar. What I needed to do was center my breathing. Like we had put another post up on the daily about the power of breathing.
Yeah,
breathing deeply into the belly.
Yeah.
A guy who was a fan of. That's another thing about the day. Is like that guy's a fan of the show. Chaz, who wrote it, he's been a fan of the Barbell Buddha stuff I've done in the past, and he's been just a guy. And like the little mission statement on the page says
he trains at Thacker's place.
Oh, does
at
he?
The lab.
Yeah. So I put out a statement that says, like, if you got an idea, that's cool. Like, we're not going to publish it if it's not good. Like, let's be fair. But anybody who has a good idea,
so if you've submitted something and it hasn't been published, you know.
I mean, it might be skipped. It might be skipped. Hey, we got a limited amount of time.
Hey, and by the way, it might be good. He just doesn't think it's good.
Yeah, but you know,
everyone's more critical of their own work.
You got to take a shot at it. You got to quickly make some kind of interpretation. But the declaration is like, if you get an idea, we want you to join the conversation. This is another way that now everybody can be on Barbell Shrugged, because it's really hard to make it happen from a resource and time perspective and travel. But like, we can get more people on that blog, and we can help people have their voices be heard, and then get their idea out, and they can mix it with. And we don't let anybody just comment, but I want to get more and more comments going on each article. And that engagement, like he had a great article on breathing. And so if you're thinking about what really makes a difference in a squat, it's calming and centering your focus. It's ignoring the external stimulus. It's knowing what positions you need to be in, filling your belly fully and deeply with air, unracking in a certain sequence and taking your time and not sitting down too quickly. There's all these things that need to be there. And if you're all out of control mentally, how can you keep 900 pounds in your back centered? Like, I feel kind of ashamed now that if I could go back and be a lot more disciplined and do a lot of things I know I should have done, but they weren't quite as fun. They didn't quite get me the same amount of attention. It didn't give me the same kind of hormone rush.
What would those things
like
be?
Like the shouting and the barking is all about ego. It's me being not satisfied with myself on some level where I got to bark for attention to kind of counterbalance. So at the time I was only pursuing a job I wasn't passionate about and frustrated that it wasn't bringing me happiness. So what else are you going to do? You're going to throw all that passion into lifting. It's like tension in your life. Like that's why now I know I can't be a great lifter now anymore. I'm a little bit older and beat up. We all got that thing. But also it's like it's not, I just don't necessarily, like we're all like 20 years into our training careers. It's hard now to expect PRs on some things. Like you get kind of burned out. But now it's like to know what you got to do. You got to be really, like to be a good PhD student, to be a good power lifter, weightlifter. The blinders have to be on a little bit, and you got to really put everything you've got. You got to give all you've got to the barbell. But if you also want to be somebody who's really living a thick, rich life, and you're really exploring and traveling and seeing everything and meeting and engaging different personalities and doing what we're trying to do with the show now, it's hard to then pour more of yourself like at night or something into heavy deadlifts or good mornings. Versus when I was a bit younger, I was so intensely focused on proving myself in academics and then prove myself with powerlifting. There's only two things.
A lot of your identity was wrapped up in
it was all wrapped
things.
Up in it.
Yeah.
So I needed to show people how strong I was. And I didn't know that you could just demonstrate it by being calm and execute. Like real strength, of course, is like in the midst of an incredible turmoil or a heavy load, you remain calm and crystal clear focused. That's what strong and impressive is now to me as a lifter.
My best lifts have come under like very calm, I mean, if you watch,
that's why I used your
picture.
picture.
I'm a very calm guy before and after the lifts.
I used your picture on the headline of the breathing article because you've got. Yeah. I think it's very brave if you actually do that too, like to openly say, you kind of openly call for calmness of yourself. Yeah. For everybody. Well, a lot of people are like, "Come on, man, let's go." All the fucking barking.
I don't hear anything. I mean, if people are yelling at me, I don't hear it anyway.
And you would say that made that approach versus what. You were a little bit more like me in the past. You probably got a little more fired up before.
Yeah, when I was younger, I used to get fired up, listen to death metal all the time. You
got
jump around.
You got fucking adrenal glands like at Christmas hams when you're younger. You can just pump out all that emotion.
I lifted weights fine then, but it's much better now. And part of it is experience, but really, I think the best part of it is the intent of each lift and focusing on getting better every time you lift instead of like moving better every time. Like, what did my foot do?
Well, Diane's physical point.
And talking about that,
the coolest example she's got is Coach Wu.
Yeah, it's like every time I lift was an opportunity to get better.
Shanghai.
He's the Singaporean national team coach.
Okay, Coach Wu. If you look in the article, I've embedded. I use the Instagrams. Okay, let me officially use this as a platform for making this statement. Everybody in the community. if you look at it and get frustrated because the pictures are covering text, you are using Internet Explorer. Please don't do that.
You should know better.
Join
rascal.
Join the 21st century.
You rascal, you. Do you have a phone in your pocket that you can touch the screen? Then that's got a browser that will look beautiful with our website. But one of the reasons why we use
Chrome or Firefox.
Yeah.
But like the Instagram usage is strategic. Like it highlights I want you to go and like the whole point is to try to reach out and find voices that are unique, and then put you in contact with them. Like we're trying to build a network. Like it's not we're not pushing ads on it. We're not pushing an agenda. We're trying to write a certain kind of thing. Whatever pops up on there is what should be there, because the focus isn't like making our audience aware that somebody's great and then showing them where to go to get more. It's like little portals into people's worlds. Like you cannot think about anything about training for running. Like fuck running. I would say that. Being as brash and as fat as me, I would say that in the past.
Would say that.
Yeah, all powers would say that. But when a guy like Nate, like I can reach out to him and say, Nate, we get along really great. I can start thinking, what kind of question can I pitch? Like, hey, what do I need to know, Nate, if I want to not be like a runner, but like not hurt myself when I go to run?
Yeah.
If I need to like maybe be fitter for my own benefit, like how can I apply it to like
what was up with Woo?
Yeah, actually, I want to tie together the whole point. Do you have something to say about first?
No, well, Coach. So Diane's last point on the physical elements of getting better. Like, people get really frustrated. Like, well, my snatch is not moving upwards.
Yeah, they're worried about the weight.
Yeah, I go, well, that's only one way to get better at snatching. It's the obvious way. You're not Klokov yet, and you feel like you notice the difference. Like, I'm weak. Well, okay. Well, another way to get to there is to come back first.
Yeah.
And relearn it. Because when you relearn, like, okay, when Diane learns with Coach Wu has a very unique style, that Asian Chinese style, like all the pulling mechanics stuff. It's got a lot of it looks the same, but it's coming from a totally different like perspective. Like the way they see it and understand it, and the way they feel the bar, and the way they engage it, it's like not at all really. Like some of it's bizarre at first, and what Diane loves is like getting in there and getting that discovery going. And she's learning again to pull different ways. Here's somebody who coaches it, and you would say is a master of those lifts. She moves beautifully.
Yeah.
Diane's a beautiful lifter. And up until this experiment with Coach Wu that she started, it's only been a couple months, maybe a year. She's been interacting with him, but she's been working with him more and more recently. But to now go back and work so hard at fundamentals, for her to be a master is really, I think, is a powerful statement. Like, she's not doing like figuring out ways to make things more complicated in her training to get better, which is the typical thing. Add complexity, add intensity, and then squeeze every bit of blood out of the stone. She's going back first, knowing that she can still do that. Like once she exhausts all these ways to learn it from as many angles as possible, then she can push towards her ultimate peak.
Yeah, when we were in San Francisco last time and we were training with Diane, she was talking a lot about how, specifically with her training with Coach Wu, one of the things that they focus on is doing the lifts with minimal tension in your body, like maximum relaxation. Granted, you want to have stability and stiffness in places that you need it, like you need a very flat, stiff spine, but everything else in your whole body should be completely relaxed. So pulling 100 kilos tense and pulling really hard is not the same as pulling it where you're very relaxed, very loose, very, very speedy, very whippy, where it feels very easy.
Too, Doug?
So punching is definitely like that. Throwing a punch very stiff and throwing a punch very loose is not the same punch.
It's way big
so
difference.
When boxers are beginning, a lot of times they are very stiff, and then you look at pro boxers and they're super loose and super whippy, and they're fast and they punch really hard because they're so fast in a lot of cases. And then when it matters, like when they're going to connect, sure, they get stiff right at the end of their extension, right when they're landing that punch. But for weightlifters, I do think that's a good measure of progress. Can you pull 100 kilos very loose and effortlessly, almost like where you are relaxed when you're doing it, versus having to like grit and strain and grind it out? Like if you can pull 100 kilos where you're grinding it, and then a couple months later you can pull it and it feels easy and effortless and you're nice and relaxed, that's progress, even if there's not any more weight on the bar.
And people would think, and they go, I hear you, like that makes sense to people, but maybe they think, but still, Doug, I want to go heavy. Fuck, let's get strong.
You definitely should go heavy.
And I think it's good. Yeah. Maybe it's better to do it certain times of the year. Like I think I remember in my own history. But there are definitely times in my training, like maybe in the off season, like after a meet, where I was like, well, I'm kind of beat up and tired of lifting heavy. So now my deliberate focus is lifting, like instead of like ramping up, like if I do a 4-week wave of squats, where I'm like week 1, 2, 3, I'm gonna add 5 to 10% each week and ramp up and then rest. Mm-hmm. Usually the weight's going up, but how about keeping the weight the same and then having the measure of progress be being able to do it faster, more relaxed, with more like whip. It's kind of hard to quantify that, but I knew like I could measure the bar speed in the lab if I wanted to. But I also knew like how long it took me to do the work, like how tired I was. So I tried to get less and less tired by week 3, not more and more loaded. And by doing that, I still was able to get stronger because I got more and more efficient. So there's a different way to train it, and it worked well for off seasons. If it didn't involve beating myself up, I felt fantastic. I felt healed. But I was still like getting better and better position every week.
One of the cool measurements that I looked at in some study that I can't quote or cite in any way was with respect to athleticism, who was the most athletic in the room, and they measured a variety of things. But one thing they found that correlated to athleticism that most people would not think of at all wasn't speed of contraction. It was speed of a contracted muscle relaxing, right? And that's what made the fastest athletes especially. And so like when we're talking about doing a very relaxed lift and you're not stressing and straining and there's not that tension throughout your whole body except for the few places that you need it, like along your spine and like in your grip, for example. When you do your pull and you get to full extension and then you need to pull yourself under the bar, you're not super tense, and so you can relax quicker because you're not so
going
tense.
In that direction,
So I can certainly get under the bar way faster when I'm nice and loose and whippy. I'm very quick like that when I'm not all tense.
An additional point to that is I think it's in Joel Jamison's book. He talks about this.
Yeah,
is aerobic training helps muscles relax faster. So
that's the MMA strength and conditioning book that Joel Jamison wrote.
Yeah, I think it's in that book, or I might have heard Joel say it somewhere else. But I'm gonna attribute it to him. I think it is Joel,
which is a book that CrossFitters should read. Even though it's MMA conditioning, it's conditioning for athletes.
He's a great
read it.
He's a great strength and conditioning coach, one of the brightest. And
we did a show with him.
He just chose to do MMA. Like he could go do CrossFit or something like that. He could coach that if he wanted.
Yeah,
he just
very
chooses
intelligent
MMA.
guy.
Principles are the same. Yeah, but he's talking about that like just doing like LSD, like long, slow distance, doing that type of training.
I was like, do LSD?
That too.
It really help you recover and see things differently.
But you got me off. Throw me off. Let me see.
I got you off after talking about LSD.
Oh jeez, it's been a long time.
Maybe we should take a break.
We should just take a break real quick though. Yeah, he talked about aerobic training. You can find it. So that's one of those things that can make a strength athlete better is aerobic training, and that's one of those little things people don't think about. They think about I've only got so much training volume to attribute here, but if you're working on speed and you need that speed of relaxation as a factor, then aerobic training does have a place now, and not just because it's healthy.
Another angle,
right? And anyone hearing that's thinking like, whoa, like he's not saying like do like piles and mountains of aerobic training. He's just saying you can do some aerobic training.
I mean, start with a little bit.
He's not talking about 7 days a week, 2 hours a day.
Okay, like 2 or 3 days a week. Probably start off if you're a weightlifter twice a week. Row for half an hour. Nice and easy.
Yeah, it's easy.
You don't need to run because if you're a weightlifter or a powerlifter,
it's like adding salt to soup. Like
running,
you can add a little bit at first. Don't add too much. You can't take it out. Like, don't start like fucking doing a mile run 3 times a day to recover or something.
Yeah, the running thing I'm not a big fan of just because it can pound the knees.
Yeah, you want to do.
You're already doing something that's already hard on them. Rowing or an airdyne or something like that can be really good and nice and easy for like 30 minutes.
I was happy to see.
Let's take a break real quick, as CTP was recommending.
Oh, and
then we'll get to your point because I know everyone's waiting for it.
Oh, God.
I wrestled in high school, picked up some jiu-jitsu after that. But between those two, I started working out with a couple of meatheads, doing bench press, curls, things like that, never doing legs. The standard gym guy workout. Never really got anywhere with it, just enjoyed my time at the gym, kind of socializing. I've done CrossFit since 2009. And I started playing with the barbell just a little bit, doing some overhead squats and front squats, thrusters, basic Metcon. I really shied away from doing strength training because it was intimidating. I'd never been a strong guy. At 130 pounds, I could always play that size card. I could always say, okay, yeah, I clean 220, but come on, I'm 130 pounds. But I've been CrossFitting since 2009, so it was time for me to nut up and do something different. And so, you know, as an athlete, I was like, what is the next step for me? You know, it's time to gain some weight and time to find some strength. I'd say the biggest thing that sparked me to do the muscle gain challenge was a simple workout that I did with a buddy. It was 12-9-6 of 185-pound power cleans and ring dips. Like, oh, that's a 90-second workout. You know, he crushed it. And it took me 12 and a half minutes to be put down that hard by a workout. It was really like a blow to me. So, you know, that was the evolution for me. It was like, I have to get stronger. You know, I don't feel capable at all. A 6-month program, I'd say right now, even for a somewhat experienced lifter, is still, that's a long time to commit. You know, you're used to 9, 12, 13-week, you know, strength cycles. Now we're going double that with 26 weeks. You know, when you realize that, how long that is and what a commitment it is, you know that, you know, you got to do it. That's 6 months of your life that you're going to set aside to get really fucking good compared to what you were. And that's what it takes. The volume absolutely blew me away. I had no idea what I was in for volume-wise, because this is coming from somebody who lifted, you know, Monday and Thursday. That was the days I lifted, that was it. You know, one lift, snatch on Monday, clean on Thursday. I might squat on Saturday. It was hard, but being stuck where I was ready for a challenge and just something different. The conditioning and the muscle gain challenge is perfect complement to the program. It's short and intense workouts that are really there to help you kind of maintain your abilities. You know, your ability to do pull-ups and muscle-ups and things like that, all those needs are addressed. And so, you know, a lot of people think, again, with a muscle gain challenge, oh shit, I'm gonna gain 20, 30 pounds. My pull-ups are gonna suck. I won't have handstand push-ups. And that's all bullshit. Because they make you do those things multiple times a week. All the skills that you know need or value will remain intact. Before the muscle gain challenge, my nutrition was pretty zone paleo, because I was so into CrossFit. I think that I was underfed. You know, for breakfast, I remember having 3 blocks of egg whites with some almonds and some unsweetened applesauce, and it was like a 3-block breakfast. I guess I didn't think about eating for my goals, but food is the most important tool that you can use to get strong. I was wanting to be super healthy and have this zoned out, you know, paleo type diet, but I also wanted to be a lot stronger. By abandoning those principles and taking on the proper nutrition, you know, I made a huge change. Just using the knowledge that they give you through the Faction Foods nutrition course, and all just the tips on nutrient timing, when to eat, you know, when to eat what, those things become a habit. And they actually introduce you to habits in the Muscle Gain Challenge. Here's habit 1, you know, weigh yourself daily. Habit 2, eat this after you work out. And those habits, I still use them, you know. After the first 4 weeks, I could tell that I was on the right track. My first time maxing my back squat during the challenge, I made like a 15-pound PR, and it was the first time I'd ever squatted, I think, 275 pounds high bar. And I was like, okay, this shit works. When I started the challenge, I was 130 pounds, had a 2x bodyweight back squat, like on the dot. I think I was 260, 265 on my squat. At the end of the challenge, I was over 150 pounds. I had a 300-pound front squat and a 365-pound back squat. So my squat went up 100 pounds during this muscle gain challenge. Competing in weightlifting was part of, I think, just like a natural progression. If you do this, you know, runners run 5Ks, 10Ks, you know, CrossFitters compete in CrossFit competitions, and you get into weightlifting, and I think it's just a natural progression to want to do a competition. My goal is to try to maximize my strength at the current body weight that I'm at now and compete in December at the American Open. And then after that, if I feel like I'm kind of maxed out on my body weight, maybe bump it up a weight class and kind of relive the whole muscle gain challenge thing, see how far I can take this. Strength helps build confidence, and a confident person walks, you know, differently. than someone who's unsure of themselves, and being strong and just having that whole thing about you, I think, is attractive to people. Chicks definitely dig that. Being stronger has absolutely changed me fundamentally, and just the way I think and feel about things. Definitely more patient. I'm nicer. I'm happier, more confident, and I can help move your couch a lot more efficiently now.
Over there.
Oh my God! And we're back.
I don't be the guy drinking a lot of Diet Coke, but I drink a lot of Diet Coke.
Chris Moore just realized that being in the green room is actually kind of cool because then you get
free food.
Unlimited
Is this
Diet Coke.
Is this what it's like to be a rock star? All the fucking Diet Coke you can drink in the green room of a club.
And barbecue. They just brought him
Now
barbecue.
I know what it's like to have been in Van Halen in the 80s. Just like this.
Just like
bountiful amounts of anything you wanted. Diet Coke, chicks. I was going to say two things before you cut me off. One was,
Let's hear it.
I was going to say, the guy who personified the speed of recovery was Rich. Like, the ability to shut it down and get over it and move on to the next thing. Like, I don't think he's so good because his peaks are so high, because he's so consistent. He gets down off the peak really quick and goes on to the next one really quick. Like, he goes on to the next hill.
Well, they talk about that with
Tony the Fridge style really quickly.
People have a hard time going to sleep at night and things like that, as their nervous system is so fired up still. And so one of the things is, like, if you can kind of turn that off better, like, through meditation or some other things, then you're going to recover better.
You need a really intense, strong stimulus, and you got to get out of it quick.
And if you recover better every single day or between every single lift, you're going to perform better at each training session or at each lift. That means that you're going to be phenomenally better than the next person. So
the only other thing I wanted to say, Michael,
go for it,
was that a great point about cardio, dude, was Ron Parsons. Like, I've been talking about Ron a lot because I was really impressed with his approach. His very reasonable approach to training. One of them was, we're not going to beat our guys up with a lot of running and stuff to condition them for fighting. We do things like the Aerodyne bike or the assault bike, maybe. Is that the assault bike? Like a
hardcore
Aerodyne, like
Growler or row.
punishing.
Like
Punishing as hell.
The climber. What's that called?
Oh, the VersaClimber.
The VersaClimber.
VersaClimber.
Dude, it's not going to beat you up.
These rowers can do it. Prowler won't beat you up too bad either. These are tools that will punish you, but are very kind to you. Like, you'll get sick before you get beat up.
Exactly. Leading up to a fight, your biggest concern, your biggest goal is just not to show up to the fight all fucked up. You want to be injury-free when you get there.
It's the same thing with powerlifting, Doug. Like, Louis personally told me, he told me one time, was like asking him all these stupid fucking questions about how to taper. Like, what this percentage and these ratios, the bands, the chains, the weights. So he's like, in the last couple of weeks, he just broke it down and like saying, the hay is in the barn. You can only get weaker right now.
Yeah.
You need to back off. Like, your job now is to preserve yourself.
Stay safe.
Stay safe and preserve yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about like what we each think about progress. Like, what is your idea of progress, Doug?
Diane did a good job breaking it up into 3 easy to digest categories. I'll probably do the same thing on my end. Instead of going the route of physical, mental, and emotional, I'll step out of just the exercise fitness space, and I'll say if you want to have a lot of progress and be very successful in life, you can jump into like the three big self-help mega niches. You have like money and business, financial success. You have relationship success, and you have health, fitness success, disease-free success. So I really think to be successful and have have progress in every area of your life, you really have to focus on those 3 things. And so you need to always be learning in every category, not just in health and fitness, but really you should be studying, how to make more money and provide for your family. You need to be studying health, fitness, nutrition, recovery.
It's fundamental responsibility of life. You should be honing that skill.
Well, if you're not good at those things, your health and fitness stuff, it will end up falling by the wayside.
It all exists in a be
if your relationships or your
who fucking says that better than anybody?
Well.
Gene Simmons says that better than anybody. It's like, it's your fucking imperative to be good at business because it's your responsibility to provide and do your best.
Yeah,
it's that hard-working
Gene Simmons is the man. I got to read his new book, Me Inc. I've
got it and I lost it, but I've also been reading Paul's book. Paul's is a magnificent book as well.
Paul Stanley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They get that shit figured out.
We've all become fans of KISS since we read Gene Simmons' one book. We're like, these guys know what's going on.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, health, wealth, and relationships.
He's worth a deuce.
Most people don't study those categories holistically. Like, they might study health and fitness, and certainly if you watch the show, you more than likely do. but maybe you really haven't studied like money and wealth and how to be a better provider. Maybe you haven't studied how to be a better friend or a better partner or better lover. You should be studying all these things all the time, and you gotta pursue each one of them individually. You can't just focus on one and neglect the others.
Well, that's what people do, though. Like, people go, what should I be doing in my life? I go, I got to pursue a passion. They start, like, forcing things. They try to push a job. And everything gets out of balance. They don't preserve. They forget that, like, you're never going to find what you're meant to do if you're trying to grasp for it. If you focus on the fundamentals, okay, I'm going to be as balanced as possible for a while. Like, fundamentally understand what money means to me and how much I need to be happy.
Yeah.
And fundamentally understand value and how I can best contribute to others. Not like trying to pick a job that pays me money. Like, if you slow down a little bit, if you get good at this stuff, then what you should do becomes like the most obvious thing in the world. Like, oh, I could totally do that because, like, duh. Yeah. That's because just the fundamentals were nailed.
Right. Yeah. So I view that more. That's not covered in school at all.
Never.
It's like, they have like math, history, science, all that stuff, and it's like
what they did cover was
relationships are the three things that's what's required to be happy, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. That's why I like that Success Summit 3.0 that we went to, where they covered a variety of categories. They talked about business, and they talked about health, and they talked about sexuality, and they talked about parenting, and like it was this broad spectrum of what you would hope education would be. It was all the most important things in life.
Exactly.
It wasn't just like abstract mathematical concepts and
or like only
social
like hacks
studies
for business or whatever.
Yeah, it was.
Do this to get a score you want. Okay, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing I've discovered is like in business, you go to like some of these like basic level business conferences, seminars, and you go to this seminar like this is how you get more members, or this is how you get more, this is how you make more money, and that's all good and well. But anyone who does that stuff well and moves to the next level, pretty quickly, people stop focusing on all the tactics and strategies.
They don't worry about money anymore.
And it moves more towards how can we live fulfilled and also how can we enable the people around us to live a fulfilled life.
Yeah.
And so like
everything comes out. Like that's where strength comes from too. If you're happy with yourself and patient with yourself, and you can take your time, you're not going to rush, and you get rest, and you pay attention, like rejuvenation as much as exertion, then you become a strong motherfucker. Same as like that's how you become a good business person. Like you focus on value, and what you're doing, and if it's still what you want to do, and are you doing it for the right reasons, and you become stronger in the best ways.
Yeah. Doug, so how do you get progress in those areas?
Yeah, I was going to say, I suppose that's more my definitions of success than progress, but since we don't have much time, we have to wrap this up like in the next 5 minutes. I'm going to turn it over to you. What's your definition of progress?
You know what? I think when it comes to progress, people too often set their I guess I'll talk about what progress isn't first. And what progress isn't is just trying to follow the crowd. I think a lot of people think that they need to progress in an area that other people think that they call progress. Like people get real wrapped up in the back squat or something like that, or the snatch or the clean and jerk. And it's one of those things where like they only want to do really well at that because they want to win the appreciation or get recognition from others, or they're just kind of like, well, that's what I'm supposed to progress at, and that's where I want progress. And they don't really. I think a lot of times people chase these things for a while and then don't ever sit and go, oh, is that even a goal for me? Is that a goal I really want to obtain, or is it just something I'm kind of following the crowd for? So
I heard the definition of authenticity or being authentic is saying what needs to be said without needing to be right. And I feel like this falls in the same category. It's doing what needs to be done for your own authentic self without needing to be right, to be accepted, to be validated by other people.
Right. So
it takes time.
So that's what it's not. And I think a lot of times people who want progress in an aspect of their life, they first need to sit down and think about what's really important for their progress, or where they actually want to make progress. And they need to be selective because you can't progress in all directions equally all the time. So first things first is choose where you want to make progress, and then figure out where you want to be, and then work your way backwards from there. And so that's kind of like where I sit with progress. And and with what Diane said, you got the mental, emotional, physical, those things spot on across the board. You can definitely see when an athlete is lacking in one of those, and you can watch them on the platform, see how they react to a missed lift or a lift they make or something like that.
And what they need is not more Shiko squats, Soviet Russian programming for them.
All right, we got about 1 minute before you guys have to go get on stage, so go for it.
Well, I wrote a book on this topic, so I've thought a lot about like what progress means to me. Oddly enough.
What's the name of the book?
Progress?
An expert.
I've recently
It's kind of a code.
And I recently pulled that stuff back up when I did a daily post called the Progress Toolkit. People can just Google it or go to daily and you'll see it. But I think for me, what I want out of my own life in business and with my family and in training is get better and better, more and more skilled at asking tough questions of myself. Like I laid out in that toolkit questions like things that you should always be asking yourself, sometimes in a serious, reflective way where you can just go off for a weekend maybe and tackle it once every couple months. And then daily in little ways asking, what's my motive? Like, what am I really committed to or not? Like, what is it that I don't want now? Like, people stack goals. But when's the last time you said, okay, what in your life can be removed so you can get what you want?
Yeah, that's a huge one.
I think your not to-do list is equally important to your to-do
Yeah,
list.
right?
Or your this is not my goal list. It should be just as important as your goal list.
Yeah, I did it like
saying no is important.
I go, well, I want to be as strong as possible. I don't think I want to do the power thing anymore. It takes a lot of courage to admit that you're not something you were. It wasn't wrong, and now you're not right. It's just that you're changed, and you need to just be honest with yourself. Like, and say, well, maybe now what's important to me is I could do a good job at Fran or something. Like, powerlifters will look at CrossFitters, be confused, like, that's not how you get strong, bro, not knowing that what they want is balance. They just want something different now. It's okay.
It's a different goal.
Change is fine.
No.
Yep. Yeah, so what are you committed to? What is it you don't want? Are you having fun still? Like, you pushed hard, you're getting something back. Is it what you want? Like, that's the toughest fucking question to ask yourself. It's like, is this what I want? Does this still mean something to me?
Really everything we do is a real search for happiness and fulfillment, even if we do it in a roundabout way.
Yeah,
so if you're not having fun and you're not feeling fulfilled, then why are you doing it?
Sometimes progress is taking something that is really important
No
to you.
doubt about that.
Sometimes progress is something that is taking something that's really important to you and you care about. You poured a lot of yourself into. You've worked really hard at. You take a fucking knife to its throat. Like, I had a blog for a long time, for years and years. It was a place where I could refine my voice and get okay with that, and get comfortable putting your voice out for everybody to comment on and the judge. That's a long process getting used to it.
It's a long
but
fucking
at some point you realize that you can keep doing that to get less and less fulfillment, or you can just decide, I don't want to do this. Instead of saying so much, I want to do a good job of like encouraging other people to speak. Mm-hmm. And that the courage to cut the throat of the passion project to let something else bloom. Mm-hmm. Like, that could only happen because I was willing to let something else die strategically.
Right.
I knew I couldn't keep giving more and more. I had to give better quality effort to the thing that mattered most to me.
Yeah.
And so cutting things away and having the courage to do that and admit what you aren't anymore is a good marker of progress to me.
Yeah.
I remember when
no doubt about that.
the last day that I was ever at college football practice, I played like small D3 college football, so I wasn't like super attached to it, but I wanted to stop playing football and start doing MMA. And I remember the last day that I was ever at practice, and I knew like that was the day that I was not going to go back anymore. I was done with it, and I was going to do MMA from here on out. I felt like a quitter.
Yeah.
Even though that wasn't me, I didn't want to be the football player anymore. I wanted to be an MMA fighter, and I was like, I'm done with it. I still felt like a quitter, and it was really hard to do that.
Yeah, you got to be brave to face it. Go, you know what? It's okay if I'm something else now. That's hard. You got to go. You got to try a few times before you pull it off successfully.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Progress is tough.
Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, wrapping this bad boy up. Make sure to go over to barbellshrug.com. Barbellshrug.com.
And sign up for the newsletter.
Make sure to go over to the daily.barbellshrug.com. We're trying to merge these sites. It's going to happen. Hopefully by the time it's posted, it's already done.
Yep.
So what I'm saying won't make any sense, and that's a good thing.
For God's sake, go read Diane's article. It's fantastic.
Oh,
yeah, she crushed it. There's a lot of other good stuff on there. We're going to do a good job of daily getting you more and more good stuff, folks. Stay tuned.
Yep, later. Thank you.
To learn more about how you can support the show, go to barbellshrug.com and sign up for the newsletter.